Welcome to Washington Hospital Today, the program dedicated to sharing timely information about the community hospital that's been taking care of Washington Township Healthcare District residents since it opened in 1958. Washington Hospital Today is provided for the sole purpose of informing residents about healthcare topics and issues that have been covered during community forums, free health and wellness classes, or as part of educational sessions held during the district's open board meetings. This program is one more way that Washington Hospital helps empower you, the residents of the district, by providing information needed to make informed decisions about your health.
Today's presenter is Anna Mazzei. After receiving her Bachelor's of Science degree, Anna attended a dietetic internship at Mercy Hospital in San Diego. Anna started at Washington Hospital in 1986 as an inpatient dietitian. Currently, she is an outpatient dietitian providing education on diabetes and weight management and conducting community lectures.
Tonight's topic is about sugar substitutes. Are they sweet and satisfying and harmless, or are they sour and unsatisfying and unsafe? Okay. So tonight we're going to look at some of these different topics and hope you walk away with some information about each of these areas. We're going to look at the approval process for sugar substitutes and get a snapshot of each of the different sweeteners, looking at their different profiles, looking at understanding some of the food claims where there would be sugar substitutes in the products, and use of sugar substitutes in baking, and then most importantly, really evaluating your need for sugar substitutes. Okay? So first, let's talk about our love for sweet. It's just part of being human. It's innate that we love to have sweetness and sugar. So our perception of sweetness and preferred level of sweetness can vary among individuals, and that's related to genetic factors and environmental factors. Of course, a problem with sugar is that it provides calories by carbohydrates, which raise blood sugar. It can cause tooth decay, and eaten in excess, it can cause weight gain. And it's void of any important nutrients, vitamins, minerals, protein, phytochemicals. And then you want to make it worse, a lot of the products that we eat with sugar also have fat. So now they become even more empty calories because it's more concentrated with energy or calories, and again, void of any important nutrients. So it's not just white sugar, right? There's other ingredients that are equally as useless as sugar, okay? Everything from honey to fruit juice concentrate, which sounds good, but it ends up just really being sugar, okay? And the dietary guidelines for Americans in 2010 said reducing intake of all added sugars is a recommended strategy to reduce energy intake in an effort to slow down the obesity in this country, okay? All right, so enter sugar substitutes, right? The panacea for relieving us of the guilt that we have by not causing tooth decay, by not increasing calorie intake or blood sugars, okay? You are familiar with many of the sugar substitutes. They come tabletop, the little packets of sugar substitutes, of course. Coke, any soda that is diet is going to have some type of sugar substitute. The gums, the mints that you always pick up on the way out on the grocery aisle. And of course, desserts like, it's in cookies, cakes, candies now. But you may have not thought about it, but it's actually in some medications and in toothpaste. Would never think that, all right? So these sugar substitutes are also known as non-nutritive sweeteners. They're also considered food additives and high-intensity sweeteners. And again, they have no calories, there's no carbohydrate in them, and they're not going to cause tooth decay. And they are very, very few calories. All right, so what happens is that the FDA is responsible for evaluating the safety of most of these sugar substitutes, okay, which are also considered food additives. So the petitioner is the manufacturer or company. They submit their data on the product, and they have to follow certain rules that the FDA requires, and especially in regards to safety data. So they're going to look at concerns are is it toxic? Is it cancer causing? Is it affecting the reproductive system or our kidney function? So the FDA scientists have to consider what are people most likely to consume? How much are people most likely to consume? What's the probable intake? And not just from one item with a sugar substitute, but cumulative. How many products are out there that contain it, and what are people most likely to consume? How is it absorbed in the system? Is it concentrated in one type of body tissue? What does it do once it's in the system? Is it metabolized? And how is it eliminated? How fast is it eliminated? Does it break down into other products that might be a problem? Okay? Okay, another way that sugar substitutes get into our foods is that they get on something called the generally recognized as safe list, the GRAS list. And the way they get on that is that a group, the scientific community deems these substances safe because they've studied research outside of what the industry's done. So in the case of the FDA approving sugar substitutes, they're looking at the company's research. Whereas on the GRAS list, there's a expert scientific community that looks at public research that's been done that's in different scientific journals. The FDA also determines something called the ADI, or acceptable daily intake, and there's one for each sweetener. Now, it's the maximum amount that's considered safe to consume every day the rest of your life. And the amount that they've determined to be the ADI is 100 times less than the smallest amount that might cause health concerns in these animal studies that they usually base this on, okay? Most health organizations, American Heart Association, American Diabetes Association, Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and even the National Cancer Institutes agree with the FDA on the safeties of these sugar substitutes. And there's a few consumer groups that do not agree, and I'll be touching on some of their safety concerns as we go through the different sugar substitutes. This is the acceptable daily intake for all the different sugar substitutes. So one I think that's pretty popular right now is the Sucralose, which is Splenda. So the ADI is 5 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So the number of packets that this person is allowed, the number of cans of soda, is based on somebody who weighs 150 pounds, which is 68.2 kilograms of body weight. So this person who weighs 150 pounds, they could have 68 packets of Splenda every day the rest of their life. Okay? Those people are very sweet. Okay? Or close to 5 cans of a soda made with Splenda every day the rest of their life. Okay? So you can see some of these other ones are not determined yet. The monk fruit is a relatively new sugar substitute on the market. It's looking to be on the GRAS list, just like stevia, and I think stevia might be on the GRAS list already. In any case, you can see, even look at aspartame, 50 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, 17 sodas a day the rest of your life. So there's a lot to look forward to, okay? So as we look at the different profile of the different sugar substitutes, we're going to realize that most of them have very few or no calories, very few or little carbohydrate. None cause tooth decay or really significantly increase blood sugar, and most of the time they're excreted out of the body mostly unchanged. All right? So let's get to the most popular one and controversial sugar substitute lately. It's aspartame. And these are the common brands that you might see at the store. So it is a synthetic compound made in a lab, and it contains 2 amino acids. Now, amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So you're going to find these same amino acids in chicken, fish, and so forth. So once you consume the aspartame, it breaks down to these amino acids and methanol. So here's a situation where FDA scientists were studying a product, and they also observed that it does break down into other compounds. So again, very sweet, 200 times sweeter than sugar. You may know that you can't bake with it, it breaks down. And I've really noticed that you have to check the expiration dates on products with it, like sodas. It really tastes different, okay? And I mean, pretty close to that expiration date, it starts to go bad. Okay, so one of the compounds that results from the metabolism of aspartame is methanol, which is toxic in high amounts. But it is also in many other naturally occurring in food products, and other food products. So for a liter of fruit juice, you get 680 milligrams of methanol versus 55 in a diet soda. So I don't think that methanol is our biggest concern, because quite a bit of it is just naturally occurring in other foods compared to even the diet soda. So one of the main concerns, though, for people who have a rare genetic disorder, it's called phenylketonuria, and you might have seen this on labels of products that contain aspartame. So phenylalanine, as we know, is part of aspartame, and normally it can build up, but your body can handle, quite a bit of it. It's not, a problem. For these people, they can't break it down. It just keeps building up. And then what happens is it blocks other important nutrients from getting into the brain. And of course, that's especially important during pregnancy if a woman happens to have PKU, which is the abbreviation for this disorder. So some of the other safety concerns outside of the PKU comes from more recent studies. There's some studies done in Italy in 2005 and 2007 on rodents. And they found that, and what they did was they exposed the rats and mice to aspartame early in life, either in utero or a few weeks after delivery. And they had them exposed to aspartame for many more years than other studies have, the way other studies have been conducted. And so they found that there was an increased risk of leukemia and lymphoma in these rats. And then in 2010, they did another study and found an increase in liver and lung cancer. All right. So nothing conclusive, but just, waking people up to other concerns about the product. Also, it showed that in some Scandinavian studies that diet soda given to pregnant women or pregnant women drinking diet soda had increased risk for preterm labor. Okay. Also, we have here is that many people complain about having headaches or dizziness when they drink products with aspartame. I don't know if any of you have had that, but that's never been proven either. Okay. So let's go on to a product that you probably haven't heard of. This is called a sulfamine potassium. So it too is a synthetic compound. There's no byproducts of it. It's excreted unchanged. It too is just like aspartame, 200 times sweeter. Unlike aspartame, it is stable in baking. And oftentimes it's mixed with sucralose or Splenda and aspartame to cut the cost and reduce some of the bitterness that might come with it. The criticism here is that there were mediocre studies done many years ago, and 2 of those mediocre studies showed increased risk of cancer in rats. Okay, so they really need some updated studies to evaluate the product, and they haven't really done that yet. And it is an allowed sugar substitute. Okay, so saccharin was discovered in the 1800s. So it's been around for some time. Aspartame actually was found out about in 1965 and then was allowed into products in 1980. But saccharin's been around the longest, since the 1800s. Okay, and it's been on and off the market. It was off the market for a while, then on the market with a warning label, then the warning label was taken off. So it's had a confused existence. And most of the time, products aren't made with saccharin anymore. It's made with these other sugar substitutes that have a better taste. I think most people are not using sweet and low anymore or saccharin. Again, it's not broken down in the body, excreted unchanged. It's getting even more sweeter now than sugar, and it is also heat stable, okay? More recently, there was something in the news about altering intestinal bacteria and actually seeing a rise in blood sugar, which is counter what it's supposed to do, right? So that has to be looked into more also. So that was just recently in the news that I heard about, okay? So then we have sucralose or Splenda. What it is, it's a sugar molecule, and it's been tinkered with till they put little chlorine molecules on it. It's not absorbed into the system, and it's getting sweeter now, even sweeter than all the rest of the sugar substitutes that we've covered. And when this came out, people were excited because it is heat stable. You can bake with it. It's been considered safe up until recently because there were more Italian studies showing that mice exposed at birth and exposed to it through their lifetime also had increased risk of leukemia. And there is some other concerns with the intestinal tract here too, with sucralose altering the healthy bacteria in your intestines too, and increasing your risk of developing certain intestinal problems like irritable bowel syndrome or inflammatory bowel syndrome. Okay, so Neotam, I'm sure most people have not heard of. It's somewhat related to aspartame and another sugar substitute that I haven't mentioned yet. And again, in and out of the body pretty quickly. Small amounts of methanol produced, very sweet. We just jumped from like 350 times sweeter to 8,000 times sweeter than sugar. So the studies to date have shown no safety concerns. This is another one that was recently approved just in 2014. Again, similar to aspartame and the neotam that we just were talking about. Again, 20,000 times sweeter than sugar. Can you imagine that? So the studies that have been done were flawed, but the justification for approving it is that it's so sweet that you're going to use a small amount. So they really weren't too concerned about the evidence from those studies, okay? And then we get to stevia. How many of you have tried this product? All right. How many of you like it? Okay, all right. So the brand names are Pure Via, Sweet Leaf, Truvia, and actually I brought some of this tonight if you haven't tasted it so that you could take a packet and sample it at home. So whole leaf stevia is not approved as a sugar substitute. And the reason why is back in the 1990s, they rejected crude stevia extracts, but there was some unsafe data came out of those studies with regards to increasing blood sugar, affecting kidney function and the cardiovascular system, and even some reproductive issues. So that's why in the early 2000s, they started to try to purify the sweetening agents out of the leaf. And that's when we came up with these different products now. So the chemical, the sweetening chemical is, we call it Reb A. It's just easier to say. It's not as sweet as some of the other ones we just saw. It's like 200 to 300 times sweeter. It's also heat stable, and I've actually baked something with it, but nothing's quite like sugar for baking something. To date, animal studies show that nothing to worry about at this time. No risk of cancer or developmental problems based on the current studies. So now we come to something called monk fruit extract. Okay, so it's extracted from that fruit that's up there. Okay, and the sweetening compounds, though, are moghrosides. I can say that. That was easier than what it's actually called, the fruit that it's extracted out of. So I think that, again, it's probably more palatable than some of the other sweeteners because it's not so intensely sweeter than sugar. And again, heat stable. The packets that you find also have something called erythritol, and that is a sugar alcohol, which we're going to talk about. So that's also in there. And as I mentioned, some of these sugar substitutes are combined to get the best flavor. So there's no long-term safety tests in animals, but it's been consumed in places outside our country, like China, for hundreds of years. And again, the monk fruit is trying to get on the generally recognized as safe list. So here we have sugar alcohols. They come under several different chemical names. So there's no brands, they're just different chemical names, and they're found in many products that will state no added sugar or that are sugar-free. So they're not sugars and they're not alcohols. And you will find them naturally occurring mostly in fruits and vegetables. And even the body makes some. It has very few calories. It doesn't really raise blood sugar because it gets digested very slowly, and it's an incomplete digestion. Of course, and again, it doesn't raise blood sugars or cause tooth decay. Some of them are not even as sweet as sugar. So it's 30 to 100 times as sweet as sugar. Now, because it's digested very slowly, it can have a laxative effect and be very unpleasant, and individual sensitivities to it. A certain amount won't bother anybody, and for somebody else, just having a piece of sugar-free gum is going to do it. Okay, usually it's recommended not to have more than 50 grams, and you see that as little as 10 grams, you're going to see a problem. So on some of these sugar-free products, they can say they're sweet because of the sugar alcohol, not because of any added sugar by the manufacturer. So you can see right here, there's malitol, and it's mixed with sucralose, which is Splenda, right there. And then here's the warning: consumption may cause stomach discomfort and have a laxative effect. They suggest starting with 1/4 serving or less. Okay, so that was kind of them to actually give you an amount to start with. So in labeling, the sugar alcohols can, because they're not a sugar really, they're going to be on the label underneath the carbohydrates, even though they're not really considered a sugar. So this product can say sugar-free because the manufacturer did not add any sugar. And it's sweet because of all the sugar alcohols. So here is a product that says no added sugar. But when you look at the total carbohydrate, right here, at the total carbohydrate, it says 13 grams, and all of it's really coming from sugar because it comes from milk. And milk naturally has what the cow produced, lactose, which is milk sugar. So they can say no added sugar because the manufacturer didn't add sugar. But it tastes sweet because of the sugar substitutes in it. Like sucralose, again, is in here. And I'm trying to see if it has a sugar alcohol. It does not. It has just the sucralose. Okay, so you can see that it's pointed right here, the sucralose. And a sulfamine potassium, so 2 of them are in there. So that's why you will still see sugar in an ingredient label because the manufacturer hasn't added any. Okay, it's just coming naturally occurring in the product. So just as we're talking about labels, I just wanted to alert you to the fact that the nutrition facts on products is going to change. The information is going to change. They're going to, at this point in time, they may make more adjustments. They're going to make the number of servings per container stand out. And they're going to make the calories stand out. They're also going to indicate added sugars that were added by the manufacturer. They're going to switch out, taking out vitamin A and putting in vitamin D. They're going to keep calcium. They're taking out vitamin C and putting other nutrients in there that we're concerned about people getting enough of. Okay, so looking at using sugar substitutes outside of products that you might buy at the store that already have them in there, like the gums and the sodas. People like to bake with the sugar substitutes, and this time of year they might really consider it. Again, nothing is like sugar. The first picture shows you a product made with sugar. You're going to get that browning because sugar caramelizes. Sugar adds moisture, whereas these other products would not, so they would dry out more quickly. It is a bulking agent, which helps with volume development, okay? So the next picture over here is a blend. It's Splenda, a sucralose, and sugar blend. And so the product is somewhat acceptable, but not as good as the one made with sugar. And then it gets straight sucralose or Splenda, and you can see that you're not getting any volume out of that, and it's getting more dense. And this is saccharin, and even though it's heat stable, we can see that it's just not giving you the quality of the baked good is just not there. And aspartame, as we know, is not heat stable, so you're not going to get any good product out of that. And also in these, when you cook something in the baked good, you expect not to have the same taste as you would with sugar also. You can buy these in bulk, and I would think that most of these are going to be a sugar blend if you're going to buy these in bulk to bake with. So these are some of the ones that are out there that are a blend. So while I'm on this subject about baked goods and foods with sugar substitute, none of these things actually promote good health. Okay, the desserts that they're replacing don't promote good health, and just substituting some of the sugar in it is not going to really promote good health. So here's John. He's 35 years old and newly diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and he doesn't like sugar substitutes. He complains to the dietitian about this. Is there some way that we can work in sugar into his diet? So we look at what he's usually eating, and we find out that what works for him best and is going to satisfy him is 60 grams of carb per meal. Okay, so that's like 2 pieces of bread, a piece of fruit, and a glass of milk. Okay, and then the protein in it, like chicken or tuna, they're not going to provide blood sugar. So 2 teaspoons of sugar is only 8 grams of carb. So he's going to include that as part of his 60. And then he's suggested to check his blood sugar 2 hours after he consumes that meal with the sugar substitute. Okay, so at a follow-up visit, he complies with the meal plan. When he checks his blood sugar 2 hours after breakfast and dinner, it's less than 160, and that's our goal in our program. Normal would be less than 140. But something's going wrong at lunchtime. It keeps popping up to 200 to 225. And he said, well, you said I could add regular sugar to my breakfast, so I did that at lunch. There's an iced tea I really like, and it does have regular sugar in it, and it only has 16 grams of carbs, so I included that as part of my 60. But now tell me what's wrong. He thought he was just getting 16 grams of carb. What's happened here? Can you see on the label? The serving size. The serving size is 2.5. He drank the whole thing thinking it was 1 serving. So he's probably getting close to 40 extra grams of carb. Okay, so 40 on top of the 60. Or 40 is he didn't include all that 40 in his 60, clearly. All right, so that was the problem there. He wasn't reading the food label correctly. So let's look at sugar substitutes and their role in weight management. Here's Jane. As she's gotten older, she's gained weight, 20 pounds. And she does have a family history of diabetes. And then she just had a physical, and the doctor told her, hey, your A1C is starting to climb up. I've been noticing this trend. So, as any good doctor will say, he's advised her to lose weight. So where does she begin? So we look at her diet history, and we looked at she's able to maintain her weight, and she must be eating about 2,000 calories a day doing that, okay? And she needs about 1,500 calories to lose weight. We look a little closer, look at her diet history, we find that she's drinking 4 12-ounce sodas a day. And they're each close to 150 calories. That's almost 600 calories she's just drinking a day. Okay, drinking those things is not really satisfying your appetite. It's not very filling. All right, so then we determined that, okay, to cut out, to bring the calories down and create a calorie deficit for her to lose weight, we're going to cut out the regular sodas and bring her down to 1,400 calories. She ends up losing about 5 pounds at a follow-up visit in a month by cutting out those 600 calories. So in this case, the diet soda really worked in helping her cut out those empty calories that she was taking in, all right? She doesn't see the dietitian, though, for further counseling until 2 years later. And she does continue to avoid the regular sodas, but she's gained back all the weight that she's lost, plus, okay? And her A1C is now 7, so she's considered to have diabetes. At 6.5 is diagnostic of having diabetes. So her diet history shows she started to eat fish sandwiches because they're good for you. But usually a fish sandwich is what? Fried, okay? And start to snack on almonds because they say these are also healthy for you, all right? So in a closer look, the fish fillet is about 400 calories. And then half a cup of nuts is, you know, a large chunk of calories also. That's an 800 calorie surplus. So even though she gave up the sodas and lost those calories, she gained some calories back and the weight with these kinds of foods, all right? So it's a matter of consistently maintaining a calorie deficit to lose weight and maintain that loss, okay? So again, looking at different products, I just wanted to finish up also with looking at when you go to the store and you evaluate the worth of buying something that has these sugar substitutes in it. So this is some ice cream, half a cup. The no added sugar is 90, and we have the half fat as being 110, and the regular is 130. The calories aren't, I don't think, that significantly different. The problem is, of course, no one has really half a cup of ice cream, all right? When we look at the carbohydrate, it's not that different. So was it worth buying the no added sugar product? Okay, so that's what you have to look at when you're out there, when you start to evaluate products that have these additives in them, and is it worth it? Now, what I would say here is that the saturated fat is highest in the regular. So that's something that I would consider because that is the type of fat that raises blood cholesterol, okay? So overall, this middle one, the half of fat, the product with half the fat is probably the better one to use in the case if you don't like sugar substitutes and don't want to use that other one. Thanks for coming.